Welcome to another episode of Bytes of Wisdom. I'm one of your hosts, Ossie Munroe. This week, we're joined by Tanisha L. Turner. She joins us to discuss a little bit about her journey throughout the cybersecurity industry, from starting off as a pre-med college student to her current focus as a malware analysis engineer. She also shares why mentoring others and giving back is so important to her. So sit back, relax, and we hope you enjoy. This week, Don, Jeremy, and I are back together again, and we're joined by Tanisha L. Turner. Tanisha is someone that was introduced to me by a mutual friend. She's been in the industry for quite a while now. I'm going to try to my best to give you a little bit of her background. Started off getting your Bachelor of Science at Rasmussen University. Tanisha, you have to correct me. I don't know that this is in chronological order, but if it's not, I apologize. But you first enrolled in a pre-med program in school. We talked a little bit about that. We're going to touch on that. That's an interesting story, how you sort of transitioned from pre-med to information security, technology and information security. Then you started your career as an IT specialist, moved over to become a Linux sysadmin. You went on to become a senior support engineer. You're known in the industry as cybersec diva for those looking to find you out there in social media. You hold several board positions and industry associations. You're involved with Feeding America, with BDPA, formerly known as Black Data Processing Associates, where you serve as the advisory board chair. You're the vice chairman for Black Girls Hack, and you chair the Emerging Leaders Forum for GCS Advisory. In addition to that, you've been featured on Epic Women in Cybersecurity, 21 Women in Cybersecurity You Should Know, 100 Global Women in Cybersecurity Project, and you're the 2022 recipient of FAST, which is Females Advancing in Security and Technology. And you have a Diverse Champion Award from Women in Cybersecurity Society. I think that's mostly everything, but I'll give you a minute to sort of introduce yourself
Thank you,
and touch
Ossie.
on
Thank
anything
you,
that may have
everyone,
missed.
for having me here on this program. Yes, Ossie, what you have listed is correct. As far as I was vice chairman of Black Girl Pack. Currently, I'm doing chair of Emerging Leaders Global Cybersecurity Advisory Board. That's my current position at the time as far as my nonprofit involvement. I am known as Cybersec Diva, and thank you for the introduction. I do have content out there. I do have an intro to malware analysis reverse engineering series. There's session 1 and session 2 is out there. Session 3 and session 4. I know a lot of people have been patiently waiting, but I will have those out there coming soon. There's other content out there as far as with threat modeling, with our SAC using the DIP method model. That's out there as well. And then there's some blogs on how to build a cluster, which I've currently done. And you can find that on some of the content out there. Just Google my name and how to build a cluster. You can Google that as well. And yes, as Ossie did mention, my journey was actually a very interesting journey. I did start off as pre-med, which was an interesting story, to where I was pre-med at first, and I was doing IT and some security principles and security administration for fun as a pastime. So that was something that was interesting. So I decided to pivot away from the medical pre-med, where I was studying to be a cardiologist. And I decided to pivot away from that and focus my studies in technology, and from technology pivoting to security. And here I am today.
And that's pretty fascinating. There are some pretty obvious parallels between the medical field and cybersecurity. So some of it is intuitive to me, and I can understand.
Wait,
maybe
I gotta interject.
There
It's
might be
intuitive,
some
pre-med,
association.
good cybersecurity. I pull on that one, Ossie.
Yeah, if you think about it, right? In the medical profession,
Well,
you're
yeah, but
solving
we're always
problems,
solving problems.
right?
But
You're shooting and you're solving
is that the
problems.
connection you were making? I was just wondering. I just pulled that thread.
That connection I was making. It's both of those industries are ones where you have to troubleshoot. I mean, one, you're
Well,
troubleshooting humans. So
They're a
let's
little
put that-
squishier.
let's
They're a
put that
little harder
bit
to
higher.
understand. They got a little less
Troubleshooting
exact
technology,
science
yeah.
behind them. But I
Yeah.
guess I've dealt with computers that are complicated enough to no longer think they are an exact science.
And cardiology at that, Ossie, that's one of the things I was like, okay, how do you relate to now you're troubleshooting humans? I mean, you don't want to troubleshoot being a cardiologist, that's for sure, with the heart.
Listen, I get that aspect, and I get that it is not a logical jump, but in my mind, at least, I see medicine as troubleshooting. You're diagnosing, you're looking, you're understanding symptoms, possible resolution. They don't always know what the problem is, and they may try several things, different medicines, until they get it right. They try different tests. So in my mind, I draw that parallel between being a doctor and technologist or information security. And also with both industries, you constantly have to keep at pace with the advancement in the industry, like advancement in medicine, advancement in technology. There are consequences to both. Now, again, I'm not comparing the consequences of human life.
I feel like
Technology or
one of the
security.
last recordings you were
Let's get
comparing
that
like
straight.
mental health to firefighters and police officers.
I did.
Yeah,
And then we quickly
had to back out
disclaimed
that
the
one.
fact that I'm not trying to exactly draw the parallel between the two, but there are some similarities, right? In how they can both be, there are consequences to both. So to me, I don't know, the way my brain works, that's how I find some
I
sort
can
of
see that.
I definitely
logical
can see
parallel
where
between the two.
like the mind, like the
Um,
type of person that you have to be to very similar in thinking. Just like engineers are very similar across disciplines.
I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this, but I have a God complex just like most surgeons. So yeah, why not?
Listen, I would much rather go to a doctor, be it a cardiologist, neurologist, whatever, that has a God complex that's going to make me feel like they're the best fucking person to fix my heart, because I don't want the guy that doesn't.
Exactly.
Touche.
Exactly.
But that's a good point. But do you want that in a
Probably not,
technologist or
no.
security
No,
person?
but that's
Probably
your
not.
CTO every time.
Well, there's got to be a balance. There's definitely got to be a
That's true.
balance because, and security, especially in the cyber realm, as you and I have spoken about before, Ossie, we do get a lot of people who do have a God complex, and we have a lot of people. We do have some practitioners who do have that are egotistical, and but we want people to feel welcome. We want newcomers and anybody transitioning to cyber to feel welcome into the field. And that's why a podcast where we talk about mentorship and we talk about how and encourage others to get in the field. That's why these are very important, because not all cyber people are egotistical, and not all cyber people have this God-forsaken complex like Jeremy does.
I can still be welcoming and have the ego the size of Manhattan. I think I try to be welcoming, but I agree. But I think your point is well taken.
Yeah, you can be
and
both.
I'll back off of Ossie. I actually was just pushing. I was more trying to have a little fun with the conversation. But that transition that you're talking about, going from pre-med, it is a big transition. It is something that people don't normally see. So what drew your interest in medicine to start off with? Why were you there first? And just tell us what you saw as the parallels and what you saw, the person that actually did it. Because we'd like to hear from you about that interesting transition and why. Not the cybersecurity side, but why were you in medicine first? And then what was the same and what was different?
And that's a very good question. Thank you for asking. Ever since I was like a little small girl, small child, while a lot of the young girls were playing with dolls, I was into science. I was one of the little, what they call prissy young ladies that liked to catch spiders and liked to put them in a jar. I was as prissy as she could be, but I was into stuff like that. And then when I I was fascinated by the human heart, fascinated me. And from the time when we started studying biology in elementary and science, I was drawn to the heart. And from then, my uncle at the time, who was in college, he would bring me home cardiology books that he would get from one of the medical students. And he was saying, my niece, I was only 7 years old at the time, only 7, and I was reading and I was studying cardiology book, medical school college cardiology book, and about the human heart.
So but at 7 years old, what do you, it's hard to remember anything. I don't remember anything when I'm 7.
I
So
did.
what intrigued you to the heart? What was it before you even saw the books? What was that little thing that you saw and you're like, this, was it the color? Was it the shape? Was it something more?
I was fascinated with how the heart, every time when the heart beating, when a heart beats, it provides oxygen. I was fascinated. How can something like that, it's so small, provide that and be like the core of the human body? Now you're getting me going down into my really deep nerdy. Well, I was like, wow, I said, the heart is just as important, equally important, heart and brain. Those are the two components that are important in a human body. I was thinking, okay, the brain controls the heart, but the heart is at its core because your heart can still be pumping I found the heart can pump sort of towards the end. But it's like, when I was thinking about it, I was like, wow, this punching it. And look how when each ventricle contracts, now you get me into the science part. And I say, okay, that part contracts. Then when that part contracts, then what does it do? What does it do to the human body? So that's what got me fascinated in it. Just the heart, just look at the heart itself and what it does and how it provides life for the human body. So that's where I got
It's also it's amazingly efficient. It never
yeah.
stops. It never slows. It speeds up, it slows down, but it never stops. We know what happens when it stops. It's not a good
No,
outcome.
it's not.
But it's something that is unbelievably amazing from a biological standpoint. It's just something that most 7-year-olds don't gravitate towards, even once they like, hey, understand the ventricles, you got 4 of them, all that kind of stuff. And then you start reading medical books. So go from there.
And when I started reading those medical books, then I became even more fascinated with them because I would take my coloring book and put over the medical book where the heart diagram was, and I would try to trace the outline of the heart and try to replicate the actual heart of the heart. And so it just, and once I started doing that, and I was fascinated with how the different, how what color the veins would that actually blood, and to tell it when it sees oxygen, that's when you could see red. But prior to then, it's not red until it sees oxygen. But that's where when I started tracing coloring books with my heart, then from there I kept diving deep into the medical terminology, and you can imagine as a 7-year-old, and I was almost 8 at the time, and once I finished my first book, you can imagine my head was so filled with knowledge. And I'm gonna tell you the interesting thing is, and I've never told anybody this, but this parallels with the story, is that it increased my vocabulary, it increased my knowledge, became so advanced that at 7th grade, I was at 7 years old, not 7th grade, I'm sorry, but at 7.5 years old, almost 8, those tests that they test you in elementary school to see where you are as far as your level, your reading and your math.
All the way down here.
Okay.
I barely passed everything.
Okay, but at 7.5 years old, I tested high school. It's at 12th grade, 5th month level at 7.5 years old. And at that time,
that's awesome.
My elementary school teacher had told my mom that she's too advanced and we want to move her up a grade, but my mom wouldn't let them because she was like, well, no, that she would be the youngest kid. And by the time she graduated high school, she'd probably be only 16. And so that's, and then from there, I was studying cardiology from the time I was 7.5 up until throughout high school. And when I, oh no, that's okay. But when I went to middle school, then I tested college level. So that's my story.
Do you ever have any regrets about leaving it behind? It sounds like you're still fascinated.
I don't regret it at all. And at that time, and when I started, even during that time when I was studying cardiology and study the medical books, once I started what they called the computer class in elementary school, where they had it wasn't called Mac, was Apple then, but I was doing that for fun. To me, that was just a hobby. And even my computer class teacher at that time, and I saw her, and it's funny, I saw her years later at for that, and I told her that I thought about doing technology. And she was like, well, I remember when you were in my class, and I saw it, but you were insisting on going to medical school. But yeah, I don't regret it at all. because I look at it this way, I can still make an impact on people's lives by making an impact in technology and security. I can still make an impact and be impactful. It may not be as far as I'm saving somebody from preventing a heart attack or anything like that, or maintaining their heart health, but I can maintain their heart from a human perspective. I can look at it this way. I'm still helping with the heart. I'm still doing cardiology, but not in a medical perspective, but from the emotional and human perspective. So I'm touching human hearts. So to me, that's equivalent, and I'm still making an impact by touching human hearts and by being giving back to the community and mentoring others. I'm touching another human. So to me, that's touching a human heart.
Also, there's the more tangible. I'm not saying that's less important, but different is, I don't know about you guys, but healthcare networks need protecting too. And they often have very critical things connected to them. And so security can actually mean something in people's lives more directly than most of the things we talk about. But yeah, you can still do that. You can still have that impact. It's just a little indirect in protection.
Exactly. So I feel like I'm doing it on both ends. I feel like I'm doing it not only from, if I can bring my expertise to offer security organizations by securing the assets, whether that's in healthcare or whatever field. But at the same token, I can still be impactful to others by lending a helping hand and by mentoring. And that to me that aligns too. You can do it both. I can align it from security part, but then the heart part is impacting others by touching another human being's heart and helping them get to their career goals and aspirations. So to me, that's making an impact.
Okay, so you made the transition, right? And we talked a little bit about parallels between the two. Is there anything you think that people in technology can take away from the medical as some practices or the approaches maybe that
I believe that
learn from that?
anyone in technology is, as far as what you can take from the medical world, this is one thing I believe that a lot of people maybe can take just as human beings is empathy, learning human empathy and compassion for others. Because in a medical field, no matter what role you're in a medical field, when you're interacting with others, when you're caring for another individual, you have to have good communication, but you have to most importantly have empathy. That's one thing that we need to learn how to teach, and that we need to concentrate. Technical skills it can be taught, but soft skills cannot.
I got to say, that's definitely a point where I think the two industries diverge from each other. Like technology and security folks probably don't have the best human to human interaction practice. But in medicine, doctors have to have that. They often have to be very careful with how they interact with humans. Germans just get to sort of violently disagree.
It's who I am.
Jeremy makes it interesting. So if we didn't have a Jeremy, then it would be dull.
I agree that empathy is always beneficial. But my experience with the medical field is that there is actually a lack of it, that they see too many people, that at the scale they're doing a lot of the work. Empathy gets lost. You become a number. You become another person. And I think the great doctors and the great nurses and staff and everybody are the ones that still have it. But I've come into contact with too many that don't have any left because there's just cock. And I'm not saying that's something that I think is inherent to medical. I think that what you're saying is 100% true. And I violently agree to say something slightly different than I normally do. But I found that anytime you do something a lot, people become less empathetic and they talk and communicate less. And I think technology could learn a lot from the good doctors and the people that have embodied this. And I think it's a great thing that they teach, particularly more modernly. But I also think doctors could take that advice too. I think that nurses could too. There's always more room to improve with empathy. And that's across the board.
I agree.
Okay. Absolutely. But pound for pound.
It depends on what we're talking about here.
I think.
Empathy. My empathy,
yeah.
Having that sort of bedside manner.
And I found, to your point, Jeremy, I found that more so. I have observed just from experience and then just from having loved ones treated. It seems like more that what you're talking about lack of compassion. I see it more so when in emergency rooms because they're dealing directly with the public. You don't see it as much as when you're going to a specialist. Now there's going to always be people, the exception to the rule. There's also going to be a few bad apples in every profession. But I found it's probably more so when you have ER personnel, they're dealing with the public and they're dealing with all types of people. I believe that you have more exposure to people who do that now. I'm not saying there's not some other doctors and specialists who do that, who don't have empathy, but I found that's been more my experience. It's more directly with that.
I completely, I don't know. It would be really hard for me to come out of an ER room after 24 hours on Christmas Eve and have empathy left because you see so much of the worst. But I have nothing but unbelievable praise for somebody that can do that. But I also can understand how hard it is. And it's not just them. It's not just the doctors. It's the nurses. It's the staff. It's the people that make sure that whole system works. Have to do with some of the hardest things to do in life. And a lot of them do still have empathy. And I think that's quite amazing. But some of them don't. And that's the part that I remember. And that's the part that's hard to interact with. But you're right.
Yeah.
But once again, Jeremy took the conversation and went hard
Violently.
left. Let's try to pull it back.
So, Tanisha, we talked about, obviously, we just got done talking about the parallels between medicine and technology and how you made that transition. But you make another transition because you were in school, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you were in schools just studying technology. And it's to make the transition to cybersecurity. And I think there are definitely more parallels between technology and security than there is between technology/security and medicine. It's probably an easier transition. John and I just recorded an episode talking about stress and burnout in the industry. Was that something that you just not consider it or care about it, or were you not even aware when you made the transition that stress and burnout was a thing? So let's talk a little bit about that transition.
And that's actually a good question. At the time when I did transition from technology to security and cyber, the term cyber didn't come. And when I was transitioning, it was more so considered infosec. Then cyber didn't come until pretty much later on. But my biggest reason for transitioning to cyber, a lot of the technical practices and the technical hobbies and what I was doing in my spare time as a pastime was a lot of it was security. Like what I was doing, configuring IP firewalls for Linux servers. When I was learning how to do keylogging software, before keyloggers became popular, I was doing keylogging. When I was doing binaries and hashes, I was doing a lot of these I was doing a lot of these technical technologies and technical technique without even knowing that it was actually cyber. And that's when I had a great mentor who had actually pointed out to me, and his name was Julius, and he's passed on, so I want to pay honors to him. He had told me that, do you realize that you're doing cyber/infosec work, that your hobby is actually part of cyber and infosec? And I told him I wasn't aware that I was doing that. And he said, well, why don't you think about taking that hardcore technical side that you have, tech savviness, and translate it into cyber? And so I did, and it wasn't hard for me because I was doing it in the background, and I was even pen testing and did not know it was called pen testing. I just thought it was something fun that I was tinkering with, and a lot of the techniques that I was using as a hobby base were techniques that we call it now offensive security. I was doing offensive security then and did not know I was doing offensive security, and I was doing defense as far as when I was configuring the firewalls and securing the firewalls with the IP table and allow list and denial list. I didn't realize I was doing infosec then. And then from there is when I decided, okay, let's try it and see. And then when I started studying infosec, more so as far as what we call the CIA trial, when I started studying the formal parts of it, then that's when I said, hey, if it comes easy, just like technology came easy, cyber from pivoting away did come easy, because some of the techniques I was using, I did not know that I was using it. That was part of cyber defense and offense. It was just passion for me. I was just playing with stuff, and it just happened. And I create, and go ahead, Ossie. But yeah, I get so excited
So,
with that.
no, okay, sorry. Yeah, and I was just going to say, so it doesn't sound like, to the second part of my question, it doesn't sound like stress and burnout that comes with
No, I
with
did not
cybersecurity
even
was
think
even a
about it.
consideration for
And
you.
that's why, but with me, I didn't think anything about it as far as with the stress and burnout, because and the reason being, Aussie, I believe reason why I wasn't so concerned about the stress and burnout is because think about what my initial transition was from pre-med cardiology to technology. I was aware that there was going to be stress. So stress was not going to be a factor of consideration. So I was not afraid of stress or anything. And I wasn't afraid of being burned out. If it's something, I remember what my uncle told me. My uncle who brought me those medical books, he told me, and that was his exact words. When I decided not to pursue cardiology, he said, "Nee, if something comes natural to you, go for it." He said, if you like it, go for it. Don't think about the money. Don't think about stress. Don't think about anything except that if you enjoy what you're doing, then just go for it. Anything else after that is secondary. Go for something that you're passionate about. Don't go for something that you see dollar bills for. He said, in other words, he said, don't go for that goal. He said, go for what you like and what you want and what you believe.
So the advice that I'll give to all the security professionals out there dealing with stress and burnout is plan A, think about becoming a cardiologist. Be a problem at
No,
all.
I say I actually took from both my mentor and at the time and my uncle is that go for something that because you're passionate and that you enjoy. Do something that you enjoy. Don't think about it from the monetary perspective, because right now with cyber and going into the cyber realm, too many people are focused on, oh, let's go. I want to make that six-figure salary. It's not. You have to be in there for an extensive period of time before you make that six figures. I'm not saying that you can't initially in your first 2 years, but you have to be an experienced person before you can even make what it's not. You're not going to make it when you get out for 6 months. Your first 6 months, you're not going to make six figures. You're passionate, and not only not passionate for the money, but you're passionate from their heart perspective. Passionate because you believe that you enjoy. Cybersecurity has a lot of challenges. It can be very stressful. But I tell anybody that don't choose cyber because it's the biggest buzzword, it's the biggest career. Choose a role in cyber because that's something that you enjoy doing. That is a difference. And that was the difference between me. I didn't do it because I was shooting to make that money. I was doing something that I was already enjoying. So why not get paid for doing something that I enjoy and that I'm passionate about?
Got it.
So,
Got it.
Yeah.
Message received.
Message for you too, Jeremy, Mr. God Complex.
oh, I'm always going to do what I love. I'm going to be a pain in the butt about it in the process to pretty much everywhere nearby. So I want to talk a little bit more on the technical side. Let's go pivot a little bit to the left. And so you've been doing research, reverse engineering. This is an area that I hate. I hate reverse engineering. You have to know everything. You have to know all the aspects of the hardware, the OS, the applications, and oh my God, if it's compiled versus with one compiler or another, you're going to get a bunch of different ways to figure this stuff out. I hate this world. Not because it's impossible, but because the breadth of things you have to understand and like to be able to move the needle, be useful is so hard. So this is just general technical. If you could change something about the Linux operating system to make your life easier going forward, what was it? What is it?
Start a holy
Oh
war.
my gosh.
I know.
This is going to open up a
No,
can
but
of
just go
worms.
back in time. You can go fix anything in a Linux operating system and go back at any point in time and say, this won't happen. What would it be? Like, I know mine. I know mine.
I know yours too.
I'm gonna tell you right now. The thing yeah,
Wait,
Jeremy,
I
since
don't
you're
know Jeremy's.
let's put you in a hot
I'm
seat
sorry.
first. But I'll tell you, man, I have so many of them. It's hard to one. But yeah, Jeremy, I'm gonna put you on a hot seat. What is yours first?
Set UID.
Oh, I'll tell you, mine is the way the IP tables are structured. I hate to have to, I think there should be a better
Okay.
way I'm doing IP table.
I would agree. They're awful.
And just think that's where I was told even by my mentor when I was transitioning from the actual tech part into security, that was one of the aspects that I was doing. I was doing configuring firewalls. That's part of security and how to be. I do not like the way IP tables are structured. I believe that there should be a better way of utilizing the commands on that. I never did like that.
I'm going to get in so much trouble in a second. There is a better way. It's called eBPF.
Jeremy, no,
I ducked. I knew things were going to get thrown at me. I knew it was going to happen.
Jeremy.
So we've talked a little bit about the various personalities in technology and cybersecurity and versus the medical profession. But I think one of the things that probably remains true in technology and cybersecurity is that most people in the industry self-identify as introverts, right? Most people in the industry have a hard time putting themselves out there and networking. I can be guilty of that myself. I've not done a really good job of networking throughout my career. I've recently changed my stance on that anymore. Tanisha, we went through your different industry associations and where you were recognized, right, throughout your career. So it seems like you've put yourself out there. So what drives you to put yourself out there? Maybe you feel that you have to, right, to advance your career, or maybe you do it for other reasons. So I'd like to touch a little bit on the driving force behind promoting yourself.
I will admit, and this is something that that is my weakness. I will say this, is that initially I was very shy, and I'm still there. A lot of times I do get put out there, not from some effort on my part. A lot of times it's others that are around me, and then people that a lot of people that I've networked with, because that I will admit to myself and to admit to others, that is one thing that I have struggled with as far as I did it. That could be from being a mentor, and that I feel like, okay, if I put this out there about myself, then is it going to take something from somebody else? So that's one of the things that I did struggle with at first, because I was shy about that. I was shy about promotion, and still to a point, I would say I'm not that great at it, but CyberSec Denver was something that I started out with when I first got into security. That was just a name I just came up with out of the top of my head, and then it just caught on. And through my mentor and through organizations I belong to, that's where a lot of my promotion had came from. It was from a lot of people who supported me in the community. And sometimes even now to this day, and I will tell anybody who's transitioned to cyber, and then anyone who's currently in cyber, I myself as CyberSec Diva, still struggle with promoting myself, because I'm still shy with that. And yes, I mean, I do put myself out there, but then I'm bad about marketing it. So that's something I'm still learning and evolving, and still I'm trying to adapt to. But I do encourage anyone, but still take a leap of faith. I mean, take a leap of faith. Hey, just shoot your shot. I mean, if the only way you're going to fail is if you don't try. I always say this to anyone I mentor: fail forward. Failure doesn't mean you're failing. It's just an opportunity to learn and grow and develop. I still grow and develop as far as promotion and marketing. So that's something I'm still learning and adapting. I started off, I mean, you can start off with something like a blog, but I started off with taking an aspect of something that I enjoy how to do, which is a malware analysis, reverse engineer, and then to take it into where I can teach others. Now, if you can do something like that, you don't have to do a video. You can do a blog or something like that. Then that's putting yourself out there. If you're more introverted and don't want to speak in front of people, you can teach, and you can showcase your skills without doing videos. You can do blogs, and you can even be a guest blogger on blog sites. There's people in the community that will help you with that. There are a lot of good people and a lot of good organizations that support others to help them to be more marketable, to help them to have the courage to market themselves. So that's something that I wanted to let people know as well.
It's something I don't think enough people do early enough.
Right.
I've been in this industry for 25 years, and I didn't start until recently. And that's partly because when I do my own thing, but I didn't market myself. I didn't get out there, and it was to my own detriment. And now I'm starting later, and it's harder, but I'm also a little more experienced, so it's a little easier at the same time. But do it earlier. It pays dividends for years and years.
Uh-huh.
So yes, being an introvert, it makes it a little bit harder, but you can still do it. that, like you said, there's lots of ways to put your name out there. There's lots of ways to make an impact, and there's lots of ways to get more used to putting yourself in the public eye.
Yeah, and I tell anybody, you don't have to speak in public. You can do something like you can do a proof of concept. I was showing one of my mentees, do a proof of concept. Take something that you've learned, and there may be, and take something you've learned and goes and create step-by-step instructions on how you learned it, and that can help others. You can create a cheat sheet. Say, for instance, the cloud security cheat sheets. This is how it would help me to learn cloud security topic. I was telling one of my mentees, you can do that. And that gets you out there. That's a stepping stone. That gets you out there without you having to speak publicly or get on video or even have talks. That you don't have to do that if you're an introvert. There's other ways you can do it.
Just make sure you have a GitHub page. Unfortunately, that is your more modern resume.
Right.
You really do need a GitHub page. You contribute things. Don't have them only be documentation requests, and be public. And sometimes that's hard with the companies you're at, but ask permission and get it done. It is so worth it. And then ask to take some internal projects that are just like you're learning. Put them out there. They'll be amazed at how far they go. So you brought it up a couple times. Mentoring, it seems like it's something you really care about. And this is something I care about. We're all passionate here. So why do you spend this time? And what do you get from it? What's your reason for doing it? Not just the other people, but what do you take away from it? Because it's a selfish thing at the same time. And I want to hear a little bit of the drive about what you get from it.
So what I get from mentoring others is, as I was telling you before, that goes back to where, as far as I can impact others from the heart, that's where I used what my passion from medicine and turn that into impacting others by touching others' heart, by impacting from the human perspective. What I get from mentoring is I like to see people who are passionate and about what they're doing, but I want to help somebody at least create a pathway for them, at least make it easier for them. And mentorship to me is not just about helping somebody from a professional standpoint. It's connecting, and without you can be a mentor. Mentoring is not just professional; it could be for life experience. And if I can be that person to someone, to not only from a professional aspect to help them and encourage them, and to be like maybe a guide to them to the professional path, but also to their life path, to be like a lifelong mentor to them. To me, that's enrichment, and that's impactful in itself. I don't do it for any validation because I don't want that. I do that to connect and to help another individual to reach their true potential. And if I can be that person, in someone's life to help them reach their true potential, especially when they don't see it themselves, then to me, that's worth it. It's not about me. It's about that. It's about others. It's about helping another human being. It's about helping and impacting another person. And that's what I mean from the heart.
I completely agree, but I will add that I have a selfish component to it that I think you probably do. It's wonderful working with people as they grow up and mature. And when you get to work with somebody as they're on that upward trajectory, not even the fact that you were involved, but you're able to be a part of that, that's the part I take joy from, because, oh my God, we're doing more with less. We're doing more beyond what we were capable of doing a year ago. That is the awesome part that I find to take away from that. And that's my goal. And so it's interesting. I like to learn other people's goals and how they think about these things. Thank you.
Well, I have what I call an ugly cry gift. I use my infamous ugly cry gifts a lot. And anytime I see somebody win, I feel like if you win, then hey, awesome. That doesn't mean when you win, I win. It just means I'm so glad that you win. And I always send them an ugly cry gift. So sometimes, Jeremy, if I see you, Ossie, or John, any of the body on this call win, then I may send an ugly cry gift.
I think that's a good point to wrap it on, the ugly cry gift. But Tanisha, thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of our podcast. To support us, please subscribe on LinkedIn, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. We love feedback. You can reach us at feedback@byteswisdom.com. Until next time, stay curious.